Hello and welcome Exiles to a video on how to craft talismans from start to finish, covering multiple different budget variations as well as getting you the best bang for your buck. Now, I have a bunch of prep for this, but we're going to go over each individual option and I will do timestamps below for various methods, as well as the stuff I showcase here is not exclusive to just talismans. If you're playing a bow build, if you're playing a mace build, if you're playing a quarterstaff build, this crafting method will work across all different base types for making a physical based weapon. Now to start off with, just to give some context, physical based weapons can get pretty good PDPS based on basically two stats: flat Phys, percent Phys, and then what base they're on. So if I was going to search for talismans on trade that didn't already have an attack speed roll or a desecrate mod, then we would start out at a baseline of about 2 divs just to get a base. And you'll look at these weapons and you'll notice a common theme. They pretty much all have a decent percent Phys roll and a decent flat roll. That's all it really takes to start out your base. It starts at 2 div. Now, how do we get there? Initially, you could just buy one of these bases, slam on a Battle Essence, slam on an Amamanu's Desecrate, unveil attack speed, and call it a day. Now, this will get you a mid-tier weapon. Let's talk about getting you better than mid-tier and doing it for less, depending on the cost of what's on trade. Now, the first method I want to showcase is recombinating, because it's also currently one of the most cost-efficient ones. For context, I went through and I bought a bunch of bases. These bases are all flat Phys bases of the ideal base type, the Theory Talisman, not just some of the other bases which aren't as good. And on top of that, they have the ability, if I hit these recombinators, to get higher than 550 PDPS. The cost of these bases, just to showcase for context, if you're trying to buy a base like this, you're going to be looking at Max Rage, Base Phys, Magi, Talisman. If you're just trying to buy a base like this, these are costing anywhere from like 10 to 15x is where I bought most of these bases at. I also bought some T2 physical rolls, and I will showcase that as well because you have slightly higher odds if you were to buy, let's say, a T2 Phys roll versus a T1. So for example, like this for 5x. Now, recombinators, how do they work? Let's go ahead and give a little bit of a demonstration on some of the math behind recombinators. So right now I'm getting out some T2 flat Phys and T1 flat Phys, as well as T4% Phys versus a T4% Phys with a different roll, a T4 Phys with a wrong item level, and a T3% Phys as some examples. So to look at the recombinator, it'll tell you your odds of success. You put in a T2 flat Phys roll, you put in a T2% or T4% Phys roll, it says you have a 14% chance. You can use an Omen, which says lucky, which basically takes this from a 1 in, I don't know, 7 or whatever this is, and makes it about a 1 in 5, 1 in 4, because it rolls twice. So this will be more like a 26, 27%, something like that chance to succeed with the lucky Omen, which I would highly recommend using. It doubles your stat, it doubles your chance of winning. Now, something to note here, recombinators prioritize the base that is holding on to the rarer mod. For example, if I put in a T1 flat Phys roll and a T4% Phys roll, it is way more likely to give me back the same base that has the rare mod. This is the reason why if you fracture and you miss your fracture, it's very hard to get that good mod onto another base. It basically hurts your ability to attempt refracturing things over and over again because it's very hard to transfer off. So it hurts in that regard, but it helps us because it means if we have a good stat on a good base, we can try to recombinate that with a lower weight mod or a higher weight mod, something that's more common, and it is very likely to give us back the base we want. That's why I have a bunch of Fury Talismans with the ideal higher weight or lower weight mod, the flat Phys mod, along with percent Phys bases. I don't care about the base as much. I just want a high roll of it. Now, something to take note of is you'll notice this was a 14% chance to succeed. The recombinator doesn't care about the divine on the roll. It just cares about the roll. So for example, if I were to take this roll, which is worse, it's 132, you'll notice it gives the same chance. However, something to consider is if you grab something that has the wrong item level, it will hurt your odds. This thing right here has a 132 roll, but it gives a much lower chance because this item level is bricked. So if you're searching for bases, make sure you type in correct item levels so the guarantee both bases could naturally roll the stats you're trying to recom together. One more note here is the higher collective power of the mods you're combining, the worse it's going to make your odds. So for example, I took a T4% Phys and it already cut our odds in half. You're going to have to find what are you willing to risk in terms of how many bases you want to buy versus how good of an item you want to make is. I think a pretty sweet spot is T1 flat Phys with T2% or T4% Phys rolled at a top divine. This giving about a 1 in 4 chance of success, I think is pretty dang good to make a good item. Now, let's go ahead and roll some of these bases. Put all these back. I just wanted to give some examples there. That's why I bought these extra bases that I'm not actually using. I have 8 pairs of Fury Talismans, a couple T2s. I have 2 C2s, and then I have 6 T1s. So we're going to go ahead and send some of these bases on recoms and see how we do. Now, for cost, Recombinator, Lucky Recombinator was about 25x per, and these bases were 5 to 10 to 15x. So, and the percent Phys rolls were like 1 to 2x. So for example, the way you would search these up is I had Magi Talisman searching for a specific Phys roll, and that's how I bought my flat bases. If you're looking for your percent Phys bases, you can get rid of the implicit, you're not searching for a specific base. You can type in the very specific number, 134. I would recommend also including a not filter for accuracy, because you don't want to hit these hybrid mods that isn't going to give you actually T4 Phys. So for example, right here, this is a T4 Phys roll, it's 3x. You can also widen your search a little bit to slightly worse divines, and that'll give you a lot more options, a lot cheaper. Now let's go ahead and showcase the process. So we have T2 flat Phys, T4% Phys, 14% chance to recombine. I'm going to do the Lucky Omen. I have 8 for 8 attempts, and we'll see how this goes. Roughly, it's about 25% success rate. So from this, we'll get maybe 1 to 2 successful hits. Most of them will poof, but some of them won't. So for example, right there, that was our first successful hit. We have a very good talisman. This is already going to be a base that can hit that 500-ish DPS range. So let me just showcase this real quick. I forgot to buy whetstones, so I'm gonna go buy some whetstones real quick, just so I can showcase the DPS numbers.
Let's see if there are any
Whetstones are getting more expensive, I guess. All right, so anyways, go ahead and quality this up. You'll see it's a 250 to 455 range, just to showcase the PDPS of this roll. This was T2, T4, so not quite as good as T1 plus T4% Phys, but this is still going to be a very competitive base. So at the top roll, the bottom roll, divide by 2, and then multiply by the attack rate. This is already a 450 PDPS base. If you were going to buy this on trade, it would cost you, for example, oh, I should also include the cost of greater runes, because that also factors into the Phys roll. So let me do that real quick.
Have an order?
Greater runes, iron. We'll buy a few of these.
All right, your order is registered.
All right, let me do that calculation again because I forgot to factor in the iron runes. So 298 plus 525 equal this, divide by 2 times 1.25. So we already have a 500 PDPS base on a Fury Talisman. This, for example, if you were trying to buy this on trade with none of like the downside mods included, and we're going to look like max rage, and we go 500 PDPS, this base would already cost you 2 divines. If you start upping it to like 550, which is what we'll hit if we recombine the T1 flat Phys rolls, you're looking at a 4 divine base. This should cost you less on average to make these sorts of bases, but just giving you some examples, it really depends on what's currently on the market. As you know, trade is fickle. If people all start doing recoms, the bases will get more expensive, yada yada yada. You get the idea. So anyways, let's go ahead and recom the rest of the bases and see where we end up. We have 8 attempts, 8 bases, and we'll see what we end up with. So this is another T2 flat Phys roll. We're gonna recom again and see where it puts us. That one deletes. Now, when we're looking at the T1 Phys rolls, it lowers our chances. Now, actually, looks like I bought a couple wrong item level bases, because you need to make sure this base can actually roll the T1 flat Phys is a possibility. So I kind of messed up a little bit there. So we're going to take out whatever bases like that I have, and hopefully we're okay. So we'll do all these recoms for the T1 flat Phys and see if we get any more successes. So this base is a no-go. That base is a no-go, and this base is a no-go. So I kind of messed up because I bought some bases that were too low item level. So we'll do these 2 attempts, and then I will quickly buy a couple more bases to showcase. Percent Phys plus flat Phys. Nope. Flat Phys, percent Phys. This is lucky with 10% success rate, which lucky makes it go to like 20% roughly. And I'll buy 3 more bases. So just to showcase this, the reason it is this way, if you look at the bases, 2-hand weapons, talismans, to T1 flat Phys, you need at least item level 75. So what I should have done, which I forgot to do when I was searching for these bases, is I should have made them all have item level 75 here. So we'll go through and we'll buy. These don't really need to be Fury Talismans. I mean, I could buy Fury Talismans, I guess. They're not much more expensive. Or, sorry, they need to be Magi Talismans. I don't really care about that base per se. So we'll buy 3 more bases. The thing about recoms that you should note is this is more gold intensive than it is. Oh, I forgot to do not accuracy. I probably just baited. I probably just bought a base with accuracy, didn't I? Yeah. Okay. Don't look at that. Be sure when you're doing this, you're isolating to have no accuracy on there. So I'm putting in the time. I'll go ahead and buy the perfectly divined T4 Phys. 1, 2, and 3, and we should be good to go for some additional attempts. All right, so we now have 3 more bases for these 3 Fury Talismans we have left, or Magi Talismans, I should say. Ooh, I actually messed up. I bought a couple Fury Talismans. I messed up in multiple ways because I forgot to select men. All right, don't look at me. Don't look at me. The example's a little bit scuffed, okay? It's a little bit scuffed. All right, we're not going to worry about buying more bases, but just to showcase these other bases to the side. Oh, you know what's funny? No wonder this was lower DPS, is because I bought, yeah, you need to make sure you select Magi. Magi is the better base than Fury Talisman, so I kind of messed up there in my base examples. But anyways, just to showcase this again, right now I believe is the cheapest way to get the highest PDPS for the money. Will that be the way after this video? Maybe not. It does require the most effort because you have to buy the base, and then on top of that, you have to spend gold. So it's more gold intensive and you have to buy a lot more items. But just to showcase the PDPS, If I had the correct base, 360 to 661, as you can see, this is quite a bit better than the one that was a Fury Talisman before, because I accidentally bought some bases that were Fury Talismans. But if we were going to go 360 plus 660 divide by 2 times 1.25. So, right, just to showcase, this is a base that cost us on average, let's say you're buying 10 to 15x bases plus 25x per recom, 20% chance to hit. You're spending roughly close to 2 divines plus the cost of getting yourself the gold. So if I was buying the correct bases, get rid of the item level, put this stuff back on, we say that we're a Rage Talisman and we have 600 physical damage on average before you've even factored in gem levels, suffixes, etc. These are bases that have been like quasi bricked. You're already at 10 divines. So that's just to showcase the value of recombinators and getting yourself a base that's already ready to be finished from this point. So that's recombinators. I'm going to showcase how to finish items at the end of this video, but to start with, we're just showcasing getting yourself the initial physical base. Next method is just using perfect transmutes and augmentations. So if you go to trade and you're going to buy yourself a magic base with physical damage, and you're looking for like T1 at least on a magic talisman that's a Fury base, this will cost you close to 3 divines. So I'm going to showcase an alternative method of crafting yourself a good base where you're not necessarily spending this much just to get started. Another counter example of this is if you hit % physical hybrid, this is also a decent chance to make yourself a good weapon on a more budget cost. So I have a bunch of white bases that we bought that were Magi Talismans and a couple magic bases. So for context, buying a normal Magi Talisman base is going to cost you 4 exalts. So you can buy a bunch of bases, 4x, or you could buy a base that already has physical damage, accuracy, which this would be the situation where you just could buy a base that's already hit hybrid. These would cost you 10x. There's a decent way to make a good weapon from these bases, which I will showcase, but this is an example of you could either buy a bunch of normal bases, perfect transmute and perfect aug, or you could buy bases that already have a hybrid role. And I'm going to show you how to attempt to finish from that position without spending as much resources. So to start off with normal talismans, we'll go through, we'll transmute all these bases, and then we'll perfect aug. And whenever we hit something like T1 flat Phys, we put that base to the side because this base could be used with recombinators. For example, we showcased the recombinators early. These were the bricked item level ones. So I'm going to put these higher up. But this stuff was correct item level. So if you have a base where you hit T1 flat Phys, that is something you can use for recombinations. That's one value of it. So we're going to go through another T1 flat Phys, fire, cold, fat Phys, cold, lightning, wed. So for example, when you're doing this, you're searching for hybrid % Phys, T1 flat Phys, or ideally T2 tyrannical main % Phys. So we're going to put the bases that hit flat Phys to the side here because those are things you could use for recombinations in case the recombination bases get more expensive. And then we're going to put all of the magic bases that don't hit anything good to the side. When you're doing this, you're spending about transmutes are, I think they're like, you can get 2 of these per 1x or 1 per 1x, something like this. Augmentations are 3 to 1x. So this is costing you on average for each of these magic bases around 7 to 8x to do these attempts. And the bases I had a roughly around 28 to 30 bases. So do the math, 28 to 30 bases, you're looking at around 200 to 250x of investment to do all these transmutes and augs. So whenever I hit something like the hybrid, we will put that to the side. The rarest mod is the %Phys, as far as I can tell from crafting these. And the goal is we're just searching for the %Phys, but we can work with the hybrid as well as we can work with the flat. Flat works well with Recombination Method. Hybrid works well with just attempting to finish from there. So we have a main %Phys. We hit at least one. We'll put that to the side. Keep looking. See if we get any more good hybrid. Yeah, okay, so there's a couple hybrid rolls. We'll put those to the side. Hybrid rolls we will put to the side because there's a different method for crafting with those. And then we will attempt our last 3. All right, so no %Phys from here. So the idea is it costs you maybe less on average to get one good base, but it also opens up the possibility to hit other bases like these flat Phys bases, which we can recom, as well as these hybrid % bases, which you can potentially finish from this location. So to start off with, I'm going to showcase the cheapo hybrid base finish method. So this method revolves around abrasion. Most methods will actually revolve around abrasion. Abrasion gives you T3 flat Phys, which is pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to force on T3 flat Phys. Now, when I say finish from this position, what I am referring to is putting on a prefix jawbone. The idea here is we're trying to hit main %Phys. If we hit main %Phys, oh, I just realized I had a Fury Talisman in there too. I need to start making sure I actually search for my bases correctly. So I had a couple of Fury Talismans because I forgot to specify Magi. So that's kind of my fault. All right, well, we only have 4 bases to work with. That's my bad. Hopefully this isn't a Fury Talisman. Okay, that's a Magi Talisman. Make sure you buy the correct base. Fury is the lower tier. Magi is the highest tier. All right, anyways, we have these hybrid Phys bases, and they all have hybrid Phys plus flat Phys. Now, I'm going to prefix jawbone. The goal here is to unveil %Phys. These bases are relatively cheap. You know, we could buy hybrid plus a Magi for like 10x, right? The cost of the abrasion is 3x. These are not valuable bases. They are cheap. Echoes you could do to have 2 chances at unveiling main %Phys. Realistically, this is not worth it considering the base cost us 10x plus 3x. So you don't want to echoes. That's just additional cost. These cost like 50x. You use echoes when you have something that at baseline is more valuable than the echoes, and these just aren't. But let's go ahead and showcase trying to hit main %Phys here. The lower tier physical rolls on talismans, the T2, T3, T5, these are actually very, I don't want to say common, but they're quite likely to occur. Whereas when you start getting to T4 and higher, the weights start diminishing quite heavily. So the odds we hit %Phys here isn't all that unlikely. We'll go ahead and do some attempts. We hit wed. And you also don't want to use any of the special omens of this type of guy, because you don't want the special mods in the pool. You just want to have your chance at rolling main %Phys. Main %Phys hits right there, and you'll see that this is actually already a pretty high PDPS item. Well, it's okay. That's a pretty low Phys. So that's one of those ones where you could settle on this, or you could sell it depending on how cheap you're trying to go budget-wise. That's kind of up to you. +1 totem's apparently a mod. I didn't know that was a mod on here. And then accuracy, flat Phys, and lightning pen. So this is more of a bulk spammy approach because these bases are so cheap, right? 3x for abrasion plus 7, 10x a base. And this base, even though it was very cheap, we only did 4 of them, is still a decent PDPS item. So I'm going to go ahead and showcase this real quick. Should have had more greater runes to showcase this. My apologies for forgetting to buy the greater runes beforehand. But anyways, very cheap base, but this is already a pretty good item. Even though the Phys I unveiled was like second to lowest, right? It was a very low Phys, but let's see here. 317 plus 564. Divide that by 2, times it by 1.25, right? So that's a 550 PDPS Magi Talisman. And keep in mind, the bases to get to this point were very, very cheap, okay? So we're going to go ahead and say any talisman, rage. If somebody had a really well-rolled Foot Fury, it could compete with this, but we'll say 540 for Divine Base. So keep in mind, this is one of those ways where you could very cheaply get good Phys damage where you're buying cheap bases to do it. It requires multiple purchases, but it's a way to do it on a lot lower cost. Now, something to note here, these bases are not created equal. This base is better than this base. They might have similar physical damage. Well, they don't. This one's actually like 600, so it's quite a bit better. But the point I'm trying to make is having an open prefix is more valuable than not having an open prefix. The crafting approach where you start with the hybrid depends on rolling main percent Phys, which is inherently worse than having an open prefix because the open prefix can be forced into gain physical as extra, which gain physical as extra is a very valuable stat because when you have a lot of skills that convert your physical to elemental damage, gain Phys ensures you will always have leech because that gain mod is not converted. That's just a little aside. If you're going to add a third prefix, I would go for gain physical. You could also try to go for example, let's say unveiling hybrid to try to go for a higher PDPS, but then it makes your suffixes harder to complete. All right, so that showcases the more cheapo method of taking hybrid, throwing on abrasion, prefix unveiling to try to give yourself a percent Phys. And this could have easily been 70, 80, 90%, which would have made it go to 600 plus PDPS. So keep that in mind as an approach. Next up, we're going to go for the main percent Phys approach, just to showcase this as well. This one, we're going to just throw on abrasion, and boom, we're there. That's the abrasion roll. Right out the gate, doesn't have a prefix, is already quite a bit better than this base here. Well, I say quite a bit. It's actually, oh, it doesn't have the iron runes. Hold on. Gotta make sure I put on the iron runes because it's a big part of how much Phys damage this has. All right, so this is already quite a bit better than this base, but it required what is worth 3 divines on trade, right? If you're gonna buy this base, and you could even sell it if you wanted to, if you were gonna buy this physical damage base on a Magi Talisman, this is already going to cost you 3 divines, right? It's already going to be pretty expensive. So this is the cheapo method, taking a hybrid, going abrasion, trying to use desecrated currency to get percent Phys. More expensive is rolling till you hit main percent Phys, abrasion. More cheaper than that is doing recombinators, but it costs more gold and it takes more time. And then obviously you have the result where you actually grab T1 flat Phys bases and the correct base type, which I was buying Fury Talismans on accident because I forgot to specify the base. But this gives you the best outcome, right? This is higher PDPS than this outcome is, and it was cheaper. So recoms in the current cost are a great method. After this video, people are going to buy up certain recom bases. It's going to probably even out, but this gives you a perspective on if I'm on a cheap budget, consider using hybrid percent Phys on a magic base plus abrasion plus the blind unveil and just do that until you hit an okay percent Phys. If you're on a bit higher budget, you can consider buying a magic base or buying a bunch of bases and transmute your own base. If you hit some decent bases like the hybrids, you can just send some of those and see if you get good outcomes. Now, for the most expensive option, it's buying an exceptional base that already has 3 sockets. And these bases, we will consider using Annuls and Augments. Annuls right now are about 10x, and perfect augments are about 3. You don't consider these if the bases are like 6, 7x. That's why I just bought a bunch of these bases. Now, if you want to save time, sure, spend more for annulments, but I'm just trying to give perspective for people that want to do this on a cheaper budget. Now, for the more expensive bases, we'll go ahead and showcase the method for these. I'm going to go ahead and just blind transmute all of these, and we'll just use annuls on one base if we don't hit percent Phys. On these bases, we care about percent Phys. That is the goal. And when I'm saying I'm showcasing a more expensive base, I am showcasing the method that will give you the probably highest PDPS you can get without going for like mirror tier. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we're going to go ahead and transmute these. We are looking for main percent Phys on these. If you hit something like flat Phys, you can put that base to the side and you can say, I'm going to sell that to somebody else. Obviously, you could do a recom method with this. You could risk the base. That option is available. So whenever you hit good flat Phys, put it to the side, or good hybrid Phys, put it to the side. Then we're going to go through and augment these. And we are looking for hybrid or main percent Phys, because those are craftable from that location. And you have the extra socket. These sockets were, for example, the price of these 3 socket bases were about 20x. So if they're at that price, buying them at this and then trying to YOLO recom craft could be a decent option to try to get yourself a really good 3 socket high PDPS base like this one right here, but with an extra socket. Now, these bases did not hit any good Phys roll, and that's when we start considering annulment orbs. And I have to say, I am trying to get specifically good main stat percent Phys. T2 tyrannical is what we're looking for. So for the most part, whenever we annul the prefix, we go in perfect aug again. That is what we're doing. And if we annul the suffix, we have to annul the prefix again. So we're looking for main percent Phys, T1 percent Phys. So keep that in mind. All right. I did not successfully annul an augment on, so we might go ahead and I'll just, you know what, we'll do this. I'll just tell you the approach, and if I decide I have enough currency to go for it, I'll go for it and I'll cut it into the video. But for example, for this weapon, we would roll for at least T2% Phys. There's no 82 3 socket bases on trade, so it has to be T2. We would then do Abrasion. We would then do add Desecrate, and then we would go for a 1 in 3 fracture. The Desecrate would be onto the suffix. If you miss the 1 in 3 fracture, oh, also, you would roll over the suffix. If it's a bad suffix, roll over it with the +5 attack, then add the Desecrate. So that way, when you fracture, you're guaranteed the mod you're fracturing on is going to be something like somewhat useful. If you hit the percent Phys, you're going to then annul off every affix except one, and you're chaos spamming until you hit T1 flat Phys. You get the idea. That would then set you up to do gain mod and etc. And it would finish a similar way to all these bases I'm going to showcase. Okay, so hopefully those steps made some sense. I am going to go ahead and showcase crafting from a finishing point perspective of these talismans we have here. We have the budget one. We have the 3 divine magic base that you can hit from buying a bunch of bases. We have the recom base where I did the T2, which has just a bit better chance of success. And we have the recom base, which we did T1. And I also, this was on a Fury, which was a bit of a mistake on my end. You get the idea. All right, let's showcase finishing all of these. So for these 3, they're all going to be pretty similar processes. Whereas for this one right here, it'll be a little bit different because this is the budget base. This is the base where we have full suffixes, and the budget base finishes a lot easier than the more expensive bases. The way this one's going to work is we're going to get ourselves a perfect battle essence. We're going to purchase it. That's going to go through at any point now. I'm going to liquidate a couple divines. So that way we can afford the other crafting mats we're going to need.
I'll fill that in as soon as I can.
Okay. Anyways. So for this base, I'm going to go ahead and add a Desecrate. Oh, sorry. I can't add a Desecrate because we already did that. My apologies. I'm going to go ahead and blind slam to fill affixes. I think it's worth to add the greater exalts for a chance of hitting decent attack speed or decent base crit. Some other stats that will add more value, but ultimately you don't need to worry about that too much. One thing I will say is I don't really think you should go for haste. You can go for haste if you want to, but it doesn't add a ton of value to the item because we have haste due to Savage Fury. Now we hit some pretty bad suffixes. So in this case, I just said I wasn't going to go haste. In this case, we will go haste because haste essence is... that's... do I want to pay that much? I don't know if I want to pay that much. That's kind of expensive. Because it could get removed. I think we're just going to add the battle essence. So if you have full suffixes, you have no chance of adding or ruining your prefixes. That's the cheap craft. Now again, the cheap craft here was 300 to 560. This is like 440. This was close to, I think, roughly 550 PDPS. So for context, this mace, which was made with a bunch of cheapo bases, attack skill level, this base would have been worth roughly about 3 divines finished. And I think it should be cheaper than this to make using the method we did here, where we unveiled just a regular percent Phys. If you're on a budget, that's the approach. Buy magic base with hybrid, abrasion, prefix a jawbone, unveil, rinse and repeat until you hit main percent Phys. Now, for these other maces, these are all more valuable bases. We are going to go for getting ourselves the gain Phys extra, which we're going to do properly because it's the best of the bases we have. I am going to get a suffix exalts to guarantee force a suffix.
All right, your order is
Do that right here. Exalts will only add a suffix mod. Correct. Stun duration we don't care about. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab ourselves
it's you.
Dextral Essence Omen for 164, which is pretty pricey, but it's also very valuable in terms of crafting power. Then we're going to grab Gain Physical Essence, which is 3. This will only take off the suffix. It says Perfect Corrupt Essence will only remove suffix. So that's how we force on the Gain Phys. We have 3 ideal prefixes. Technically, it's already better than my Magi Talisman here. And then we're going to go ahead and slam on 2 suffixes. Oh, that's really, really bad. So, slight problem here. When we add the plus all melee skills like that, that means we can no longer perfect battle because the game says, oh, you already have plus levels. I don't know what to do here. So we're going to panic, try to remove that mod, and hopefully we can succeed. So we're going to go ahead and slam on a 3rd affix. And so to panic, try to remove that mod. Desecration will only add suffix. Jawbone. This gives me a 1 in 3 chance to remove the +4. The +4 is still there. My next panic option is a perfect Essence of Haste. We really need to remove that because we need to be able to add Battle Essence. So we'll go ahead and grab a perfect Essence of Haste.
Right away.
Try to remove the +4. If it removes the leech, then we start having a much worse situation. If I remove the Desecrate mod, I can Desecrate again. So we're going to try this. It removed the Desecrate mod. So I can say Desecrate only suffix, and I can try to remove the +4 again. Now, it removed the +4. Fantastic. However, I forgot to use Amamanus. Amamanus basically guarantees attack speed on the Unveil. So, we kind of messed up there a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and liquidate some Chaos Orbs, and hopefully we do battle this way. We'll just buy a battle with Chaos Orbs. I guess we'll see how the Unveil goes. We're going to gamble on the Unveil, I guess. All right, so battle, we're going to try to remove that Phys Leech. We'll see how it goes. If it doesn't remove Phys Leech, that's okay. Phys Leech is some utility. And quite frankly, if it removes the Desecrate mod, that works too, because I forgot to do Amamanus to guarantee attack speed. So it removed the Onslaught mod. I'm going to go ahead and grab an Echoes, and we're going to pray we hit crit or attack speed. Please give us attack speed. Okay, so we messed up pretty big there. We could attempt to save this with Onslaught, or we could forcibly remove it with an Omen of Light. Omen of Light is the least risky, because I can guarantee the attack speed after the fact. But right now I'm gonna need to liquidate some things because we are a bit too broke for either of those methods. All right, now to finish the talisman correctly, I liquidated a few things. Omen of Light, annul, will remove the Spirit Reservation. And what I should have done the first time when I added the Desecration is I should have said, hey, I want this to have Amamanu as the modifier. The reason for this is Amamanu only has 3 possible mods. If you check the mod pool, there are 3 Amamanu mods, and one of them is attack speed up to 18%, roughly equivalent to like T5 attack speed, which is pretty good. Or sorry, T4, T3, yeah. Or sorry, yeah, T4, T5 attack speed, which is pretty good in terms of the fact you can guarantee it, because attack speed weighting is not too great. So if I had done that the first time, there would be a guaranteed unveil, which is going to give me the Amamanu mod. So just to showcase that real quick, we'll go ahead and unveil, and it'll only give us 3 mods. Attack speed, you see right there, that's the Amamanu mod. Attack speed, Spirit Reservation, and Fissures. It will only give Amamanu mods as choices, and we got attack speed. So luckily we rolled the highest tier divine on it, which is pretty dang cool. So hopefully that gives you some perspective on all the possible crafts. I'm probably too broke to go for the fracture version of the craft, but now you have the thought process on the methods. As for finishing up this claw right here, I want to give a shout out to probably one of the strongest new currencies for crafting weapons, which is the Val Infuser. It says improves the quality of a martial weapon, caster weapon, or armor above 20% with a chance of corrupting it. Specifically, what does this do? It gives you a 5 out of 6 chance to add quality without breaking it, and a 1 in 6 chance that when it does corrupt it, it doesn't break it either. It just says it's corrupted, you can't do it anymore. Quality, 10 quality is better than a socket in most cases. So doing this, it gives you a low risk. Like, you're not going to break your item. It's only going to improve, or it's going to say, all right, you hit the 1 in 6, it has to stop improving. I did this. I got all the way to 27 quality with my weapon up here that I'm using right now. Let's go ahead and try it on this claw as the final step of the craft. So we have the plus levels. We have good divine on it. Let's go ahead and see how much Phys we get to. 22 not corrupted, 23 not corrupted, 25 corrupted. So that's where the craft finishes. We didn't have to risk bricking the item with a Val Orb, and we still improved it. If we were going to take this item as it is right now, and we were going to add up the numbers, 365 plus 688, divide that by 2, we get to 533, and then we multiply by our attack speed. This is now a PDPS item that has 780 with the max rage implicit. Granted, it was on a bad divine implicit. It was only 8 max rage, but still, nonetheless, it is higher PDPS than any other Magi Talisman on trade right now. Let me check. Well, we got to take out the attack speed mod because we have to include that. So 700 PDPS. There appears to be around 8 divine claws for this. Cutting this in because I messed up while I was recording. I have the gain mod, which actually makes the claw, or talisman, sorry, a lot more valuable. Gain mod. It's a much more valuable base, not 8 divines. The bases that are 8 divines had 3 prefixes on them. For example, they had like a hybrid plus a flat or whatever, right? Gain mod is quite a bit more expensive. So there you go. Don't pay that much for the talismans. Make them yourselves. And keep in mind, this talisman. This talisman was made with the Recom method, which was one of the cheaper methods to get you flat Phys plus percent Phys. Ultimately, all the methods work. Just take a look at what the prices are for various bases. The TLDR is the cheapest method is buying magic bases with percent Phys hybrid on them, and then using Abrasion, and then going for a Desecrate on the prefix and try to unveil percent Phys. And this is kind of like just a numbers game until you hit a good percent Phys, like, or halfway decent. That gives you a pretty decent talisman at the cheapest cost. The next most expensive is probably Recoms on average, and this gives you a very good potential outcome. And then after that, going for blind transmuting and like just bulk buying bases, blind transmute plus perfect augment until you hit main good percent Phys. And then after that, you could just outright buy the magic base with already having percent Phys. And then the most expensive and the highest end game version of this is going for, you could go for Recom method with the good T1 flat Phys on a base that already has 3 sockets, or a null auging until you hit T2% Phys and then fracturing and then chaos spamming for T1 flat. Now, I'm too broke to do that, showcase that method. I thought I maybe would have had enough money, but I really don't. I'm pretty out of money. So that is the TLDR on crafting talismans. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Peace out. Have a good one.